boogeyman is real, and you found him.
Art 101 with Mr. Burgher.
Scholars, welcome back again to Art 101 with me, Mr. Burgher. I'm a professional artist and a master educator attempting to provide you with the best in art historical content. If you like the content, like, share, subscribe, do all those things. John Wayne has the approval on it, so why don't you follow along? He knows it's free, so you might as well.
There's always somebody looking for some.
Now, in the past, we've talked about several of the masters of the Renaissance. We've talked about all of the great masters, but one that we have yet to talk about is Raphael Sanzio, one of the greatest and youngest of the great masters of the Renaissance. So today is the day we've got to jump in and talk a little bit about that youngest great master of the Renaissance, Raphael Sanzio. So let's go ahead and get to it. The youngest of the three great artists of the Renaissance was Raphael Sanzio, as mentioned. His father, Giovanni Sanzio, was a great painter, and no doubt he passed along this knowledge to his son. You see, Giovanni was the royal painter of the Duke of Urbino, and so he definitely had the skills to pass along. Sadly, Giovanni died when his son was only 11 years old. However, Raphael stepped up and continued to produce and run the family studio, and so it was still productive even after his father's death, even if it was being run by a child, basically.
Come on!
Two of Giovanni's assistants, Evangelista di Mileto and Pietro Pellegrino, mentored and continued the training of young Raphael in the techniques of fresco and other forms of painting that would serve the young artist very well as he continued beyond his own family studio.
This is where the power lies!
Raphael had a reputation and was often praised for his very pleasant personality. He was quiet and laid back sort of a guy, but very successful with life. Many would consider him a guy with a flawless character, very sweet-natured, and quite good-looking. And partially because of that, he also had a reputation for being a little bit of a ladies' man. Now, he was never married, but he did have a few women that he was known for hanging out with, if you understand my meaning. Now, it is said, even though he had a lot of women in his life, he wasn't going to get too serious with them because it is thought that he was open to the idea of eventually becoming a cardinal, and a serious relationship would have prohibited that, but obviously that was never his lot in life. He was also known as a great lover of animals, as he had a zoo in his house that included chickens, squirrels, badgers, monkeys, and even a raven that he trained to talk.
I remember you. Pretty bird.
He would only live to the age of 37, but in his very short life, he had worked his way up professionally to becoming the official court painter of Pope Pius III, Pope Julius II, and Pope Leo X. Over his years of service to the papacy, he was commissioned to create paintings, of course, but also various designs and architectural works, and was essentially in charge of all of the Pope's artistic projects. And it was under one of these commissions by Pope Julius II that he would create one of his most known works, the fresco painting School of Athens.
I don't trust this kid any further than I can throw him.
Near the end of 1508, Sanzio was summoned to Rome by Pope Julius II, where he was commissioned to paint a series of paintings in the papal apartments that were being converted into his library. The books in his library were divided into four basic categories: theology, philosophy, justice, and medicine. Now, this particular pope had a dislike for doctors, so poetry took the place of the medical books in his library. Anyway, Each set of books had a fresco painting that represented the major contributions of that area of study. Of these frescoes, Raphael would paint 3 of the 4. This process began with some sketches that were done in ink or chalk, and then those preparatory drawings would be used to create the final fresco on the wall. Fresco being a pigment and plaster sort of paint application. The first fresco in this series was the Dispute of the Sacrament. Now, when these ideas were developed, the Pope had commissioned his ideas and even outlined the works in a general theme and characters. On these, he would begin at the top of the painting and work his way down on a scaffold. Once the first one was complete, he would start working on the second. And this was under the umbrella of philosophy. He had created what was originally titled Knowledge of Causes, where we would find a depiction of the ancient Greeks in a simulated school of Athens. At the center, we see Plato lecturing at the head of the class, flanked by statues of Apollo, the god of poetry and music, and Minerva, the goddess of wisdom. And who is Plato? He was very much influenced and looked up to and revered his contemporary Leonardo da Vinci, and so he paints Plato in the likeness of his idol Leonardo da Vinci. Side note, this is a bit of an ironic move since Plato had condemned the arts and even banned painters from the city.
Have you ever heard of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates?
Yes.
Morons.
At any rate, much of the fresco is actually based on variations of Leonardo da Vinci works of art, which he very much admired. As a matter of fact, he had copied sketches of his famous Mona Lisa painting, and not the Mona Lisa painting that hangs in the Louvre, but the original Mona Lisa painting that is actually underneath the painting, the original Mona Lisa painting before he repainted Mona Lisa on top of it. At any rate, we'll talk more about Mona Lisa in the future here on Art 101 with Mr. Burgher. But moving forward, this collection of the greatest Greek minds is underneath the unfinished St. Peter's Dome, which was a symbol of free thought. And standing here we see Plato with his finger pointing to the heavens, a symbol of divine glory as he holds his own book, Timaeus, where he discussed the nature of the universe. At Plato's side is his student Aristotle, who points to the ground, a symbol of the humanistic times that they were living in. And he holds a copy of his book, Ethics, in which he explains that happiness is only achieved when we understand philosophical truths. And there are clusters or groupings of other individuals throughout the work. There are teachings of many academic fields. For example, we see a grouping of students learning mathematics from Pythagoras. Clearly, this mathematician is teaching underneath the statue of Apollo because he was into studying the harmony of numbers and music scales known as octaves. Behind Pythagoras, we see an old man in the corner. This is Zeno, the founder of Stoic philosophy, who is most likely debating his ideas with Epicurus, who had his Epicurean philosophy, as he writes in his book. On the opposite side, as we look at it on the right side of the painting, we see the bald-headed Euclid holding a compass on a slate. On the neck of his tunic, it reads RVSM, the only signature of sort on here, which stands for Raphael Verbinos Sua Mano, or Raphael of Urbino, his hand. Standing next to Euclid, holding the globe with his back to us, is Ptolemy, who studied Earth's geography. Facing him and us is Zoroaster, an astrologer priest and founder of the Magi. He and Ptolemy are teaching Raphael in the black cap and his best friend, Il Sodoma. He was the Pope's painter prior to Raphael taking the job. Slumped on the steps is Diogenes with his beggar's cup. He was a philosopher who made his home on the streets of Athens and made a virtue of extreme poverty. This painting was painted on a wall in a room that was used by the Pope to sign various papers and documents. It's very close, just down the hall from the Sistine Chapel where Michelangelo Buonarroti had created his paintings on the ceiling of that Sistine Chapel. Because the Sistine was such a large and unique project, it was unveiled in 2 parts. After the first half was unveiled, Raphael went to the higher-ups to ask the Pope to allow him to finish the ceiling. Of course, Michelangelo protested. Clearly, the work was continued and finished by Michelangelo, and Raphael went on to paint the other rooms and to do other projects in the Pope's apartments. At the same time, he was so impressed with what Michelangelo had done, he felt that he had to incorporate something of Michelangelo into the school of Athens, just like he had other contemporaries like Leonardo. And so he goes back to the school of Athens. It was finished for over a year, but he was so awestruck that Raphael smashed out a part of the fresco plaster and replaced that with a depiction of Heraclitus into the painting, and Heraclitus, sitting by himself, propped up on a block of stone, was created in the likeness of Michelangelo in the fall of 1511. Now, the association of Heraclitus to Michelangelo is a bit of a comment on how Raphael viewed Michelangelo. Heraclitus was an individual that was a bit hard to understand due to his riddle-like philosophies. He lived his life alone and was always very suspicious of rivals trying to take his ideas. Raphael was able to find some level of admiration for Michelangelo, even though Michelangelo saw Raphael as an envious copycat of a punk kid.
Hasta la vista, mother.
Raphael was also known and admired for his Madonna paintings, or works that focus on Mary with Jesus as a child. Many of these compositions and works show his admiration for Leonardo da Vinci, and as his career was progressing, Raphael was definitely becoming more and more the leader in the artistic world, having been assigned many important commissions. Sadly, his life was cut short as he was out having a so-called good time with his mistress lady friend, Margherita Luti, as they celebrated together on his 37th birthday. We can see her in several of his works, as she was used as a model in several of his paintings, but some would say they were together and had a bit of a wild night. He went home with a very high fever and then died. Ironically enough, he was born and died on Good Friday.
Maybe he had a heart attack! Holy shit!
Again, there are a lot of ties that we think of when we think of Raphael Sanzio, when we think of Raphael in general. We think about the other popular culture sorts of icons and things that raises in our mind, but really, my hope is through this video we understand that he was a gifted human being. He had developed his skills from a very early age, and he used those skills to adorn and decorate the world, creating some marvelous works of art that we can enjoy and appreciate beyond any other pop culture reference. Man, I love that story. Thanks for following along and watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a good day.
I just wanted to confirm the fact that I've made absolutely no impact on you in the last 5 months.